बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। मजलिस उलमा एशिया यूरोप के तावन से आज का ये प्रोग्राम हो रहा है जो कि मेंटल हेल्थ केयर के हवाले से मशवरे दिए जाएंगे और ये दारुल हादी इस्लामिक सेंटर मैनचेस्टर में मुनक्कद हो रहा है और इसमें हमारे जो मजलिस उलमा के यूथ और जो यहाँ से मुतल्लिक़ा लोग हैं वो इसमें शरीक हो रहे हैं और इसमें हमारी बहनें भी शरीक होंगी और भाई भी, और वो मेहमान जो कनाडा से प्रोफेसर तशरीफ़ लाए हैं वो इसमें आकर वो बात करेंगे। बहुत शुक्रिया जी।
The sponsors being Hujjatul Islam, Maulana Sayyid Fida Hussain Bukhari, Haider, IUS and Darul Hadi for the venue. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala assist them too as they've assisted us for this event. This event to you, as you can see, there's banners here, is brought to you by Majlis Ulama Shia Europe, and it'd be apt for me just to give you a brief background about the organisation. The organisation was established in 1993 by a group of like-minded ulama who saw a need in our centres for clear guidance and clear assistance. From those building blocks back in 1993, it is now under the apt leadership of Hujjatul Islam Maulana Sayyid Ali Raza Rizvi. He has achieved and still forwarding MUS mission to new heights and actively speaking against oppression around the world and forwarding the human rights agenda as prescribed by Islam. Just some of its achievements also include education, which is at its heart, with the introduction of the seven syllabus books for education for children and young adults. These are just some flavours of what MUS has done in the past decade or so. Now, why has MUS decided on this event? MUS, in consultation with Women's Coordinator Sister Isma for the Abu Zar Zone, Ghafari Zone, organised this event because she has a 10 years experience in mental health or in the health sector and recognised the need to propagate the awareness about mental health and well-being, especially in the Muslim communities. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept this humble initiative, and I anticipate you and I will inshallah benefit greatly. Before inviting the speakers, I'd like to congratulate you all on the auspicious birth of Imam al-Zaman alayhi salam. And I'd like to now before I invite Sister Berak Hussain, who is a Canadian Iraqi. She's a psychotherapist, also known as the Muslim counselor. She's a passionate public speaker in Muslim mental health, social justice, Islamic issues, working tirelessly to break the stigma of mental health within communities. She encourages people with one simple motto, being inspire, lift and empower. Please help me to welcome Sister Berak with a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala. Also, I'd like to introduce Brother Aslan Toofani. He's a mentor and a student at the Hussain in London. Welcome you to the panel as well. Aloud salawat, please.
Assalamu alaikum. I know we've had a few little technical difficulties, but alhamdulillah, we're all here now, and it's an honor to be here in Manchester, working together with the community for this important event, and inshallah we'll have more people seeing the importance of mental health in our communities. And so what we're going to start off with is an activity. Inshallah, later on this afternoon, we'll have more of a formal presentation. But we have an activity set up for the youth and the parents. And before we begin, I want to see, where are the youths? Raise your hands. How many do we have? Got a few here? Yes? No? Okay, so 1, 2. Just so we know how many people, like where to split and whatnot. 2 back there? Yeah. Can I see your hands, please? Okay, so we'll need one group of youth then, and then the parents. Where are the parents? Can I see your hands, parents? Okay.
Yeah, 1.
No, it's all right, because we're actually going to be splitting up. So inshallah, the parents will stay in this room, and then the youth will go to the other room. And so what we have in this activity, inshallah, today is we're going to be taking a look at some topics that are important to both the parents and the youth. Usually around education, what do we have them here? I have them behind. They were here. So education, friends, family. What would you say are important events in your community that you find that both the parents and the youth struggle with? And by the way, I have some goodies from Canada here that I will be giving away, especially for people who are interactive, because it's not just going to be us who are going to be talking, right? So we're all going to be working together and sharing ideas together.
Assalamu alaikum. So we're here in Manchester at Dar es Salaam, and right now we're in the midst of the activities where we see the young ladies are exploring the different topics that's important to them. So from education, family, friends, social media, and I always forget the fifth one, but there's a fifth one in there. And so they're exploring in terms of what's important to them, what do they want their parents to know, issues around that topic. So this activity is designed to try and bridge the communication with the youth and the parents to understand issues that matter to them. Sometimes with cross-generational issues or cross, the age, the generation gap, we tend to go like this rather than like this. So inshallah, this activity is designed to bring that communication closer to understanding. So here we have the young ladies. Let's go check out the parents on this side here. So in this room we have the parents who are also discussing the same topics, and you can hear them. They're actively chatting with each other and exploring ideas. So let's see what they're writing. We've got some family here. Already discussed education. So far so good. Everyone's talking. So let's go down here and let's check out. So the male youth are in here with brother Aslan. I don't know what's going on. Let's just barge in right now.
Change the way.
Salam. So they're busy actively working.
Right?
Yeah. Okay, are you guys gonna get started on the ideas? Because I need to write down.
Yeah, so we're just brainstorming now and then we're gonna write it down.
Awesome, okay. Because they're ahead of you, huh? We've got the time frame.
Oh, you think they're ahead of us, but
Okay,
it's a strategy.
Okay, alright, so we've got around 15 minutes to have everything written down.
Alright.
Alright?
Thanks.
So here we have the younger folks here, and this is probably the funnest part of the whole event, arts and crafts. I think I'm gonna leave the other group and just stay here and work with you guys. What are you building? What are you making? What are you making here? You're not sure yet? The little monster? You guys have a lot of fun stuff here. What were you making?
I was trying to make a monster as well,
A
but
monster, one-eyed pink monster?
I was trying to make it 2 eyes, but one of them wouldn't stick on.
Oh no, so we're gonna have to try more glue, huh? You guys having fun? Sort of, yeah? Maybe? Do you want some chocolate? No? Oh, we have someone who doesn't like chocolate here. It's alright.
Social media. So the young ladies wrote there's a positive aspect to social media. There are some nice Islamic pages out there. I absolutely agree with that. There's a lot of negative as well. There's so much out there that you can access that can be both, right? Peer pressure, idolism, parent support. So for the peer pressure here, so many young people use social media or post pictures of themselves hoping to get likes, right? Because you feel good when so many people start liking. I have people coming to my office who actually are upset about the fact that they don't get enough likes on their posts. Why? They connect their worth to how many friends or how many likes that are out there. But is your worth truly connected to something that is almost fake out there? I'll give you an example. This is an extreme example, but it just happened recently. In Canada, there was this couple, a power couple, so to speak. They were both surgeons, doctors, okay? They've been married for a number of years and they have children. On social media, they showed themselves to be perfectly happy together, all the trips they were going on, all these things that we do, right? You just want to show them off. Sorry, this is a little bit extreme, what I'm going to say next. He killed her 2 weeks ago. There was violence in the home, domestic abuse. What you see out there is truly not what could be happening behind the camera. This is an extreme case, like I said. But if you filter this down to smaller examples in your life of, people going on trips or enjoying the food that they're posting or whatever it is, it could be that people want to show things that they want, right? So it's tricky when it comes to social media. And that is connected to your well-being and your mental health, right? Because what you see, the expression, the grass is greener on the other side. You want what they have, right? And you connect your worth, who you are as a person, to how many people like what you put on there. And you're constantly addicted to it and seeing what other people are doing. And it's such a waste of time if you think about it. Unless you're using the Islamic pages, right? But then you have to be careful because sometimes it could be wrong resources, or, you know, we take these quotes of the imams and we think, you know, oh yeah, this is really true. Whereas there's a whole science, and the brother can attest to that, studying himself Hausa, Islamic studies. You can't just take something out there and say that's what that person said. There's a whole science behind that, right? And so sometimes you just got to be careful and be, you know, use your head, be a critical thinker when it comes to social media. And parent support, what do you mean by that, ladies? I'm really struggling with the ladies today because they're so concise. I have to guess what they mean. What do you mean by parent support? They don't support you using social media, or you're Snapchatting with your parents? Because sometimes that's what parents have to resort to. They come and say, how do I talk to my kid? I'm like, Snapchat to them.
Are they forcing you to use social media?
I think it's the opposite.
I know.
I think it's the opposite. But some parents were saying, how do I talk to my kids? I'm like, invite them down to dinner with social, you know, with the Snapchat. Look what I made, you know, they'll come running down. But this is kind of neat though, right? The parents, that we have to learn how to use the language. Language also means tools. So I'm not too sure what you meant by this. Can someone tell me, what did you mean by parent support?
Children, I mean, even when we were young, it was all about increasing the number of friends on Facebook. So it doesn't matter who they are, just because they've added, so they're like Facebook friends. And that could lead to getting into, it's a danger of getting the wrong friends, like, you know, you mentioned grooming and leave.
Yeah. So, not grooming as just the way it's perceived in the news, but also in the sense that it's, again, like the girls have already highlighted, that it's a bad influence on doing wrong things, maybe, or joining other clubs which you might not have joined had you not made this friend. So just being aware that yes, there's good friends, but then there's also bad ones out there.
Okay, so instead of what I'm hearing from you, so instead of saying, you know, being restrictive and saying not to use it, for the parents to become more aware and knowledgeable about how to use it. But what if you're using it too much and they don't think it's healthy for you? Especially, I'm not saying you, but let's say there's a lot of young people your age who are looking at pages they shouldn't be looking at, right? Or spending so much time there. Perhaps your parents don't want you to do that for a reason. Perhaps it could impact your, you know, your sense of self, your confidence, when you're constantly comparing yourself to other people. Perhaps, you know, they're trying to limit that. Does that make sense? Yeah, so there has to be a balance. There has to be a balance with that. Does that make sense? Did you want to add to that?
Yeah. So when we go to university sometimes, and hopefully we go through the right courses for us, which is very important, we don't just learn the stuff, we learn how to think, which is very, very important. It's an art itself. That's why it's very also important, and the sister mentioned it earlier, to choose or try to choose the course that's important, that, you know, settles well with you, right? I'll show you an example. Yes, my parents wanted me to become the mohandas or the engineer, which I came to be, but when I went to university to do this software engineering, it sucked. I didn't get it. I didn't have that passion. I was good at math, but this was a new kind of math. And it's involved around, you know, things that I didn't understand. But anyway, good things came out of that. I had to learn to do something that I just didn't like. It was boring to me. I hated it from day, not one, because day one was cool. You go to university and you play. And once you sit in the lecture and you're like, I don't understand this. It's not fun anymore. So the good things can come out of these things as well, like learning how to do things, even if you don't enjoy it. We discuss that with the brothers. But if you can identify early on, hopefully parents can contribute, what is my son, what is my daughter processing about? Are they more artistic? Are they more creative? Are they more mechanical and precise and sort of an engineer, mathematical mind? Because once you go to university or higher education, you don't want your child to feel like they're stupid. Because they're not. That's how I felt like. And I wasn't stupid. But at least I don't think I am. Right? So I went in there with A's on different subjects. I went in there thinking something's wrong with me. But that's really the only explanation. That wasn't the explanation. This wasn't for me. I could have done great in other fields, which I'll get onto later on. Right? Identifying our let's not set our children up for failure. They already have a lot to figure out in life. Huh? Let's figure out, okay, what is my child's abilities in? And let's make them the best in that area that they do that.
Which is wanting to help people, not necessarily through science, but through mental health and psychology. So there's definitely a pressure to study and expectations. Parents don't approve of some subjects. So this is an issue in every community. Much more so I find in our communities, perhaps because of the pressure of society, the community itself, in terms of parents wanting to say, I have a doctor, child, or my son went into engineering, or my daughter, you know. And so there's those expectations that we want to fulfill. Sometimes our parents coming in from another country who may have this background are stuck doing different work here, and so they want the youth to succeed because perhaps they were not able to live their dream of working in the field, right? So that happens sometimes, and that's why the parents sometimes pressure the youth to study these certain areas which may not work with you. Perhaps you do have artistic abilities and you want to grow that. So this is again where family communication is crucial, where you have the trust to talk and discuss. And I always encourage parents, nurture your child's abilities, their preferences, their strengths, rather than what you want. You can advise them and tell them, go into this field. But working at a university, medical clinic, I have students coming in all the time telling me, I'm studying this degree for my parents. I hate it. I'm not doing well. And it makes sense, right? They're not enjoying it. They're not doing that well because they really don't enjoy the studies and they don't have the ability sometimes in it. They're doing it to try and please the parents. Then there's that discrepancy right there. What does that do? It causes stress, which then can lead to other mental health struggles, right? There's so many implications behind that. I get where the parents are coming because as parents, you want to see your child succeed. But what is success? We have to redefine what success means here. Is success getting a high-paying job so you can, perhaps show off in the community? I have students coming in, for example, from Africa. And this young man was dealing with severe depression, had suicidal thoughts, and he felt the pressure from his entire family, not just initial, but the entire tribe. He was telling me, his uncles and aunts, you are our hope. He came to Canada to study. You are our hope. This is the pressure he's coming with. They all pulled in to pay because international fees are exuberant, right? There's a lot. And this student comes in, he's failing, he's not doing well, he's almost having a psychotic break, which means he can't function anymore because of all the pressure. His family expects him to graduate, go back home, and be rich and take care of everybody. That's an extreme case, of course. The idea again here, sorry?
No pressure.
No. He's cracking, so to speak, under the pressure, right? So the extreme case is like that, but the idea here is we want to nurture a child with education. Perhaps out of line, what can I do to help you with that?
Absolutely.
I remember my mom, she would not let us do any housework or anything extra, just school during the work week. Weekends, me and my brothers had vacuums and we cleaned the house and we did all that. But during the work week, our mom wouldn't let us do anything. She said, focus on your schoolwork. Come weekend, you help me out after. So this is important too. The relationship is, as parents, how can you help your child succeed? You can have that, discussion, that talk on what their needs are and what your needs are, right? So we're getting close to the end here, and I know we smell the biryani. We're hungry, right? So I'm going to speed it up here now, because food is very important, which is funny enough we didn't talk about here, right? Food is very important.
That's all we were thinking about, so it's okay.
Okay, all right, fair enough. So here we have, I'm going to do religion first and then I'll get to social media. So religion, we talked about as parents, here. So religion, so you might convert. So help me out here, young ladies. What did you mean by that? You feel that you might convert? You think your parents think that you might convert? What did you mean by that? Can somebody tell me? The young ladies? Bless you. Because I'm guessing here what you mean by that. I don't know what you mean by that. What did you mean by that, ladies? Yeah. What did you mean by you might convert? You think your parents think that you might convert? Yeah. So you're saying that there are converts coming to our way of life. A positive influence and negative as well, right? Because you have different cultures here. Okay. It's the first time I come across that one. That's an interesting one. Perceive religion in a negative way. So sometimes, why is it that our youth see religion in a negative way? Perhaps it's forced in a negative way. Perhaps there's, the meaning behind it is not given. Classic example, parents forcing hijab on a girl who never wore anything, let's say, very modest growing up, and all of a sudden at 9, 10, just to be completely covered. This child probably is not groomed into it, right? So sometimes that's very difficult. I find that right now with my daughter, I'm teaching her very young. She does not wear, little shorts or spaghetti straps or, we call them that in Canada, but tiny clothes. I teach her you wear shorts under your dresses and t-shirts under those dresses, even though she's still young, and then she's learning into it. This year, mashallah, she decided to. She's wearing the hijab right now. Of course, each time I go to ziyarah, I bring back tons for her, those nice sparkly ones for the little girls, and she wears it. She wants to wear it every day, even though she's not of age yet. She also sees myself, my mother, and so she has that influence around her, but we don't force it. In fact, I tell her, don't wear it today. Mama, why do you tell me not to wear it? I want to wear it. I'm like, okay, you wear it, that's fine. So I use reverse psychology on her, right? But it's how you present it. It's how you present, how you model the religion as well. I hear this from, when I've done this activity before, I've heard from the youth who say, well, my parents told me don't do this haram thing, and they go do it themselves. Your child is watching everything you do. That's a lot of pressure on parents too, right? But what you do is being picked up. They're little sponges. And if you say don't do this, and you go do it, they're going to see the hypocrisy. They're not going to respect you. So the consistency is very, very important, right? The way you present religion to them can turn them away from it, absolutely. Some things aren't explained properly, lack of understanding. Mixing culture and religion. I come from Iraqi culture, where everything cultural becomes halal, haram. Halal, haram, like black and white. But no, that's not what the religion says. No, that's how we do it. So this is pretty common, I'm sure, in a lot of our cultures, where we take cultural things and we make it halal and haram. Trust me, your child, he's smart. They're smart. They have access to information where they can find it. I did that once. My dad said something, not that I was like trying to negate him, but it just didn't make sense. So I went to Sayyid Sistani's translated, and I went to him. He's like, no, that's English. That doesn't count. But it's the same book that you have, but it's in English, so I understand it. God bless him. Anyways, in that case, what I'm trying to say here is that your child has access to information. They can find out things when it comes to culture and religion, right? So we've got to be really careful around that. Game or whatever it is, right? But if you can find that time instead of rushing back and forth, that could go a long way in providing that time that they need with you, for sure. So number 4, motherhood. Working parents and housewives to appreciate the value of one staying at home. To have work and home life balance. Yeah. Number 5, language skills. English, not the number 1 language, so this leads to disconnection, age gap, and I would also say cultural gap, right? The cultural gap with how we were brought up in our countries as parents when we raise our kids here. It doesn't work the same way, right? It doesn't work the same way as when we grew up in our country. So that, like, you're just perhaps raising your children the way you were raised and thinking it's going to work in a different time and a different generation. And we know, for example, from Imam Ali alayhi salam, I'm going to paraphrase, don't raise your children this, they're in a different culture, a different time, a different mentality. You cannot raise them the same way.
as you, I'd say he's a great psychologist, right? To be thinking like that and presenting that idea, definitely. All right, so this is for the family from this side.
Things. Parents, this is how you get the information out of your kids. But the idea here is when you're building that trust, your child's going to feel safe to share these things with you, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. I think.
Yeah. نختمها بالصلوات على محمد. Yeah. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
Because they've sinned so much that it's very hard for them to recover from the impact and the damage that they've done to themselves. And those people are probably most likely going to stay in that state unless they do dramatic changes. Okay, so this is the lowest stage in terms of the nafs. Okay, very, very low. We don't want to be there, inshallah, we're not. Then you have nafs al-mutma'inna, which is the highest level of having purity for the souls. These are the individuals who find contentment in whatever situation they are in. And this, of course, is the Prophet and our Imams. These people, infallible, no sins, whatever challenge God has put in front of them, they've accepted it gracefully, and they've continued in their life in a very content and in a state of happiness. Perfect example of this is Imam Ali alayhi salam. And the moment when he was hit on his head, instead of complaining about, oh, this guy hit me on my head, and it's all poison and things like that, and instead of moaning about it, he comes out with a statement of, I have succeeded by the Lord of the Kaaba. Okay? Imam Ali's mindset is somewhere else. We're here so indulged with the materialistic side of things, and Imam Ali, somebody literally just killed him, he's going to die in a couple of days later, and he's saying, I have succeeded by the Lord of Kaaba, and that means his state of mind is so close with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that some materialistic thing that this guy's done has not even affected him, his mind's somewhere else. And of course, being hit and being killed is one of the biggest tragedies that can happen to yourself. He's in a different world, but again, he's in al-mutma'inna, the highest stages there, content, happy with what? Now, then we have the middle ground of our souls. So like we said, right at the bottom, right at the top. Then we have the middle ones. And these people are the majority of people in this world. And nafs al-lawwama. These are the people who criticize themselves at different categories. So how you can work out where your soul is in a very easy practical method is look at how you criticize yourself when you commit a sin. So if you commit a sin and if you do it publicly, that means you're not really criticizing yourself very much because you don't have shame from your sin. You just do it publicly. I will go out and I won't wear hijab today, I don't care. I will go out as a guy and I'll come out and, won't wear the appropriate clothing, which is muharram to me. They don't care. They know it's haram. See, there's a big difference between not knowing haram and there is knowing haram. They know it's haram and they still do it publicly. This is low stages of a lawwama, where you self-criticize, because you're not criticizing yourself. You're proudly doing it. You're Muslim, but you're doing it. Then you have the people who, they make a mistake and they kind of feel, oh yeah, I shouldn't have done that. But then you keep doing it again and then again and again, and you're not actually finding a solution for yourself. And then you have the people who are above that, where when they commit a sin, it's actually a problem for them, and they feel a sense of regret when they commit this sin. I shouldn't have done this. This is haram. I really need to, and they spend a bit of time to self-reflect, to improve themselves, to avoid this. Now we are all fallible. We're going to make sin. It's a given. Bani Adam. We're not infallible. But what we can do is we can improve ourselves. That's the whole design of life. Allah knows what's going to happen, and Allah knows that we're born here in this generation. Allah knows about the current mental health problems and the situations that He knows everything. But what are we going to do? Because it doesn't come, for free. We have to put some form of effort in. If you put a bit of effort in, Allah will give you so much more help. That's the system. It's a very nice design. We need to put a bit of effort in to show our interest in becoming better people. So again, those people who have regret upon a sin, they're on the highest stages of an-nafs al-lawwama, the soul which criticizes itself, obviously below nafs al-mutma'inna, but you try and aim for nafs al-mutma'inna. We try and aim, that's the idea. Have a bit of shame. When you sin, have a bit of shame. Because if you have a bit of shame, you'll start to connect to Allah more, because you've shamed yourself, and it's an embarrassing thing that we've done in front of the Imam of our time and in front of Allah. Have a bit of shame, and that will bring you to the high state. This is a practical way to get closer to Allah. So people just say, we don't know anything, we've got to attend lectures, we don't know anything, no one's saying anything, we don't know, they just stay in Siyam, Salat. Practicality, get yourself involved, and that's the idea. So, to improve yourself as well, if you want to start climbing the stages, again, faith in Allah, and that's having a strong iman, so obviously, so self-criticizing and self-acknowledgement of what you're doing, and gaining the knowledge and putting it into action. Gaining knowledge is something very important, because the more understanding that you have, the more of an idea of what your life is, and you can put it into a practical sense. And we can link it in to the hadith of Imam Ali alayhi salam. What does Imam Ali say? Imam Ali says that the mind is the imam of our thoughts. The thoughts are the imam of our heart. The heart is the imam of the senses, and the senses are the imam of our organs. Let's break it down. So the mind, which is obviously what we think, our brain, whatever enters it will naturally be our thoughts. This is the design which Allah has brought to us. So if our mind is, entranced with positivity, lots of positivity, correct way of thinking, doing halal, doing helpful deeds, and doing all sorts, and living the life which is the correct Islamic way of life, all positivity will enter your head, and you'll have positive thoughts. Negative things can happen in life, but when something bad happens to your life, your mom dies, or you have another problem, you see it as a process of life. You don't die with them. It's a very upsetting thing if a tragedy happens, no matter what tragedy it is. Well, you can't stay in a state of depression or a state of anxiety because of this incident. You appreciate the incident, you mourn if it requires mourning, but then there has to be a process of going back and moving on, and still remembering those, like we do every year. For example, Imam Hussain is the perfect way. We remember him every year, and we have to maintain it, but we don't affect our mental health. It's very important. So if you have a positive mental health, any problems, you acknowledge it, but then you stay positive. Now this positivity, what happens then, it goes from the mind, which our thoughts happen, the thoughts enter our heart. Now the heart, many hadiths in our Islamic narrations states that the heart is something very, very delicate. Very, very delicate. We're starting to understand our soul now. The heart is something very, very delicate, and we have to take care of it. Because if positivity enters through our mind, which become our thoughts, the thoughts enter the heart, then the heart feels secure and safe. Now, if negativity entered, the opposite will happen. You won't feel safe, and you'll feel insecure. But if you were safe and positivity happens, you're doing everything halal, your heart will feel secure, you'll feel content, you'll feel that, you know what, I'm team with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm invincible, I've got Allah with me. No matter what happens to me, let everything happen. I've got Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with me. And then this heart, when it feels secure and content, this will reflect onto the next stage, which is our senses, our perception, our sight, our hearing, our touch. All these senses, you'll start to protect your heart because you want to maintain the heart in a sense of security. So if you have a very safe heart, you want to keep it safe. So if you see something haram, you look away and you force yourself to look away. It requires training. Or if listening to something that's muharram, you start to change it to something else like Quran or dua. You start having a process of changing. You start changing all your senses. Why? To protect your heart. Because if you protect your heart, you'll feel that sense of contentment and satisfaction. That contentment and satisfaction is the happiness that we're looking for. Mental state, correct mental state. Now, if you have your perception, which is this is haram, your organs, your limbs, you're not going to walk towards the haram, you're going to stay away from it, which is the final step into the design that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has established through the saying of Imam Ali alayhi salam. You stay away from the haram. You don't want to get close to the haram. This is not for me. I want to maintain my heart in a state of contentment. And where does it all start with? It all starts with positive thinking. Our culture is not positive. Okay? Biryani was made. Oh, this is nasty, they put too many chilies in. They're all complaining. We can't be like this. Find the positivity in it. For example, now it's sunny, but most of the time it's raining here. Oh, it's raining. Oh, doggy day, isn't it? It's not. Find the beauty of it. Find that it's a rain from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give nourishment for our crops to grow. Find the positivity. Be positive. Get out of that state of mind. Just get out of the shackles which the society has put us in. And obviously, through this, it's through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's another state. Finally, Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam, through a beautiful dua, makaram al-akhlaq, sahib al-sajjadiyya, there are certain supplications which we can do, which you can do research upon. These will bring ourselves out of depression and anxiety. Simple du'as. Make sure you know the translation, by the way. Don't just say things without understanding it. If you don't know Arabic very well, or if it's in Urdu and you don't understand Urdu very well, keep the copy of the translation, because the translation will make a massive difference. And there's no shame in learning it for English. There's no shame at all. Learn it and understand it, and fully absorb the dua. The more you absorb it, the more effect it'll have. It'll get rid of these problems that you have. So just to conclude, in terms of the Islam and the mental health, again, the main things is faith in Allah, climbing up the ladder of your nafs, maintaining our soul, protecting our heart, and of course, the establishment of dua, which is a very strong concept, because the dua has the power to change outcome. آخر دعوانا والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وآل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين صلوات. يا الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا معينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. I am stranded in the deserts of corruption, looking for the oasis of justice. I am stranded in the deserts of corruption, looking for the oasis of justice. The voice of the people is echoed with lies. Those that are the perpetrators are victimized. Those that are oppressed lay in their own blood and die. I await for you, O Master, in your hope I reside. The powerful and corrupt all fear your eyes. Whether they admit it or not, the relief will soon arrive. They don't shy in saying it in public that if the Mahdi returns, we shall fight him like those in Karbala. They consider fighting the Imam an obligation. To secure their illegitimate wealth, they resort to this great sin. O my Master, in this age of fitna, I seek your help. Please guide me to the right path, for there are many roads of deviation, but there is only one path to salvation. We see, O Imam, our own corrupted by this society. They pray for your return, O Imam. But such states that if you return, they be your end. O Imam, you are our gate to Allah. Please intercede for us so we may find relief soon. Through you, O distressed soul, who is left not unanswered when he calls. Mankind shall find relief from this age of corruption. So indeed, your participation is required. Our leader, the shining star, our leader, if you can clap with me and recite with me, calling for our leader, inshallah. And of course, we want him to arrive as soon as he can, but of course, through improving ourselves first. جزاكم الله خير الجزاء. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Okay, so that was a moderate salawat. The shining star, our leader, I call out for some help. You come to me yourself. I call out for some help. You come to me yourself. You never leave me be. You're there when I'm in need. I'm in need. Never leave me. Never leave me. Stay by my side, never leave me. Our leader, our leader, our leader, the shining star, our leader, our leader, our leader, the shining star, our leader. I'll serve you till the end of time when I'll defend. I'll serve you till the end of time when I'll defend. Under your true command, like father and his child at your service, till my last breath, at your service. Our leader, our leader, our leader, the shining star, our leader, louder, our leader, the shining star, our leader. The earth is full of fear, we really need you here. The earth is full of fear, we really need you here. We really need you here. Our prayers, please do hear, please do hear. Please don't delay, please don't delay. Not even one day, please don't delay. Our leader, the shining star, our leader. Let's do louder. Our leader, our leader, the shining star, our leader. For how many more days until your name displays? For how many more days until your name displays across the sky's blue maze, replacing the sun's rays, your pure beauty, your pure beauty. My eyes await your pure beauty. Our leader, the shining star, our leader, our leader, our leader, the shining star, our leader. O Imam, this world full of its disgressions, the Muslims, be they seemingly the righteous of all, are the most corrupted. One should not stab a brother in the back, but they do so with no conscience. O Imam, the blood of Hussain calls for its avenger, so for the sake of Hussain, return to us sooner. Despite our bad conduct, we ask you to hasten, for this era is the peak of evil. Not safe are even our children. The world is a prison for the believer. Yet in this prison is the Yusuf of Ahl al-Bayt, grants companionship. It shall become the greatest garden in heaven. Bring the sights back to the grieving Ya'qubs of this ummah. And by the light of you, O Master of this era, we ask you to hasten. Have mercy upon our state of helplessness. For Al-Mahdi, Ya Allah, show me the path to Al-Mahdi, Ya Allah. Grant me Shifa'at Al-Mahdi, calling you. Where are you? Please tell me it's my wish, Ya Mahdi. Salutation, salawat upon you, Ya Mahdi. Love thee well, Ya Mahdi, fantasy, Ya Mahdi. Love thee well, Ya Mahdi, fantasy, Ya Mahdi. My heart yearns, Ya Mahdi. Ya Allah, Ya Allah, grant me Shifa'at Al-Mahdi, Ya Allah. Show me the path to Al-Mahdi, Ya Allah. Grant me Shifa'at, louder, Ya Allah. Grant me Shifa'at Al-Mahdi, Ya Allah. Show me the path to Al-Mahdi, Ya Allah. Grant me Shifa'at. Hussain's prayer, Islam shield. Come to me, beg and plead, Ya Mahdi. Allah's armor, none higher. The highest, the guided, Ya Mahdi. Be noble, Ya Mahdi. Role model, Ya Mahdi. Noble, Ya Mahdi, role model, Ya Mahdi, Ya Habib, Ya Mahdi, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. Grant me Shifa'at Al-Mahdi, Ya Allah. Show me the path to Al-Mahdi, Ya Allah. Grant me Shifa'at Al-Mahdi, Ya Allah. Grant me Shifa'at Al-Mahdi, Ya Allah. Show me the path to Al-Mahdi, Ya Allah. Grant me Shifa'at. Eloquence, God's secrets, so high in the sky, Ya Mahdi. Near God's throne is his name, engraved there, peace be on Ya Mahdi. Come aid me, Ya Mahdi, come save me, Ya Mahdi, come aid me, Ya Mahdi, come save me, Ya Mahdi. Everything is Mahdi, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. Grant me Shifa'at Al-Mahdi, Ya Allah. Show me the path to Al-Mahdi, Ya Allah. Grant me Shifa'at Al-Mahdi, Ya Allah. Grant me Shifa'at Al-Mahdi, Ya Allah. Show me the path to Al-Mahdi, Ya Allah. Grant me Shifa'at Al-Mahdi. Seven heavens wait to you. Seven heavens wait to you. Bow to you. Your command, Ya Mahdi. Moon and stars serve your name. You are all my reason, Ya Mahdi. In respect, Ya Mahdi, cleanse yourself, Ya Mahdi. Go towards Ya Mahdi, Ya Allah. Grant me Shifa'at Al-Mahdi. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Indeed, inshallah, we ask Allah to grant us the shifa'at of Imam al-Mahdi, the Imam of our time. Jazakumullah khair for your participation. I believe there's some kind of raffle going on. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. For the hastening of the appearance of our 12th Imam, can we have the loudest of your salats ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أحسنتم، جزاك الله خير الجزاء.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much for coming back. Welcome to the new folks who are here right now. Inshallah, we're doing the main event right now where we're going to be first talking about mental health, well-being, excuse me, and understanding some of the struggles that we have, excuse me, within our community when it comes to understanding what is mental health. So let's get started, inshallah. I usually like to start this presentation by reciting this ayah from Surah Al-Rahman because I find it's very reflective. And when we take a look at understanding inner peace and tranquility, this beautiful verse from chapter 13, Surah Al-Ra'd, it expresses guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to attaining this inner peace through dhikr, through remembrance. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Ala bi dhikrillah tatma'inna al-qulub. Verily in the remembrance of Allah, the hearts find rest, tranquility, serenity. And so this remembrance can be learned and applied through, inshallah, what we're gathered here today to learn about. Seem to be full of technical challenges today, but alhamdulillah, we've been overcoming them really easily, alhamdulillah. So we're going to take a look at what is mental health in general and well-being. We're going to take a look at issues surrounding counseling. We'll look at gender variances, as well as some of the signs of depression and anxiety. And then we'll take a look at how to provide support for those in need and self-care. So when you hear the word mental health, I'm going to go back. When you hear the word mental health, what usually comes to your mind? And I still have some goodies here to give out for people to answer as well. Yes, go ahead, sister. Something taboo. Okay, thank you. What else? This one's for you later. Well-being. Okay, thank you. What else? When you hear the words mental health, what comes to your mind? What was that, Maulana?
Low blood pressure.
Low blood pressure. Stigma. High blood pressure, perhaps, yeah. I think, yeah. Okay. What else? Give me a little bit more. When you first heard about this event, what came to your mind? When you heard mental health and well-being, what came to your mind? Yes?
Some people think this is just a white people problem or a non-Muslim problem.
Interesting, a non-Muslim problem. Right. Thank you. What else? And when we hear more from the back over there? Healthy mind. That sounds like a positive thing. No, please, it's great engagement. You get most of these then, right? They're all here for you. Crisis. Crisis for the youth. So it's interesting, we heard a lot of negative words. High blood pressure, low blood pressure, problems for the youth, you know, a non-Muslim issue, but it still happens, right? So we hear negative things mostly. I heard only one positive, well-being.
Usually I hear so much more negative than the positive, because when we talk about mental health, it's right away connected to negativity, taboos, misconceptions, you know, depression, I didn't hear that one, or anxiety, right? We hear these right away. But what's interesting is when we take a look at these definitions here, you don't see anything in a negative manner, right? It talks about striking a balance in all aspects of your life, whether it's social, physical, spiritual, economical, or mental. Nothing really negative there, right? It's just about balance. And the World Health Organization also describes it as a state of well-being, excuse me, in which every individual realizes his or own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or own community. Now let me ask you this question. When we hear physical health, what comes to your mind? All positive traits such as energy, healthy eating perhaps, sports, so physical fitness, right? So more in the positive. Yet when we hear mental health, right away we think of negative things. Right away we think that it means that you're losing your mind, you're crazy, right? Those are the immediate taboos that we hear. And I remember as a student coming from an Iraqi community, when people ask me, what are you studying? I said psychology. I'm going to translate, I'm going to say this in Arabic. They say, رح تصيرين مجنونة مثل هذول اللي راح تداريهم. You're going to be just as crazy as those people that you're going to be treating. And I find this hits the point exactly in our community when it comes to misconceptions and misunderstanding around the topic of mental health. We think this is funny, but the reality is when it comes to the statistics, when 1 in 4 or 1 in 6 or 1 in 5 amongst ourselves are struggling with mental health, it's not a funny matter anymore, right? Let's take a further look in terms of definition. So when we're talking throughout the presentation, inshallah, you'll understand fully what it means. So we look at the University of California. I was trying to find a good definition, and I came across this, which I really liked, and it describes it well. In terms of well-being, it's describing a conscious, self-directed, and evolving process of achieving full potential. That's a very positive description, right? So why does it matter? Because maintaining an optimal level of wellness is crucial to live a higher quality of life. So it matters because everything we do and every emotion that we feel relates to our well-being. So in turn, our well-being directly affects our actions and our emotions. So it's an ongoing cycle. So therefore, it's important for everyone to achieve optimal wellness in order to manage stress better in our lives. Like everybody deals with stress, right? And so this reduces the risk of illness, and then it ensures positive interactions, which is what we were talking about earlier today. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's not a very scary definition anymore. And if we take it a step further, they describe the 8 dimensions of wellness. So occupational, career-wise, right? Emotional, spiritual, environmental, financial, physical, social, as well as intellectual. So you see how holistic it is. All aspects of our lives. And if you notice earlier today, we touched upon a lot of these aspects within the categories that we were exploring in order to help you reach your full potential. So we were talking about statistics, and I found some interesting statistics when it comes to the UK, which is very similar to what we have in North America. We take a look at anxiety and depression as being amongst the top mental illnesses. So I just want to actually go back a step further in terms of defining mental health and whatnot. So we all have mental health, right? In Arabic, الصحة النفسية. We all have mental health. When does it become a problem? When we don't manage it well. Then it becomes a mental illness or a struggle or an issue, right? An illness would be something that is diagnosable by a doctor, like categorized like that. So do you understand? We all have mental health, just like physical health, but then it becomes an issue when we don't take care of it. So the issues or the illnesses or the struggles, the top 2 that we see are anxiety and depression. Interestingly enough, 7.8% of the population meet that criteria. 4 to 10% of people in England will experience this. And this is, interestingly enough, correlated to your socio-economical background as well. Again, anxiety and depression is estimated to cause 1/5 of days lost of work in Britain, which shows you how that impacts your productivity at work. And 1 in 6 adults, they had a common mental disorder, and the NHS describes 1 in 4 adults and 1 in 10 children experience potentially these illnesses over a lifetime. So we see that over the last few years there has been an increase in that, like we were saying earlier today. And so this is why, part of why we need to understand more of this within our own communities. So let's take a look at what are some of the misconceptions and what are the barriers and also the common illnesses that we deal with within our own community. This is always fun to go through because people then become quite shocked or surprised or maybe, oh yeah, I knew this all along in terms of the myth. So you guys are going to help me with this as well, all right? So number 1, mental illnesses are not real. True or false? False? They are real. Just because we cannot see them per se, right? We assume that they're not as real as somebody breaking a leg or somebody having a diabetic issue. Does that make sense? Right? When we hear somebody who got in a car accident, la samahallah, right? What do? We go to their families, we perhaps help them with the cooking, taking care of the children, depending on what's happening in the family, right? We're quick to jump, or if there's somebody gives birth, all of these things, correct? Why is it then if we hear that somebody had a schizophrenic break of mind, or they tried to hurt themselves, perhaps wanting to kill themselves, or we hear they're put in the psychiatric ward in the hospital, we shy away from that. We don't go ask about them. Probably we'll hear more gossip, but we won't go and find out or how we can support and help. Have you noticed that? Yeah. So that's part of the misconceptions that we have around that. They are real illnesses just because we cannot see them. And so if somebody breaks a leg or they have a diabetic issue, what do? You go to the hospital, you go to the doctor, right? Or the hospital, you get the diagnosis, you get the medication, you get the cast, right? When you break a leg, you don't go tell the person you should go pray more. You should go read Quran. You should have more faith. The leg is broken. You need a cast. You need to subdue that pain. Then perhaps you can do dua for shifa, right? So that's what happens mostly in our communities. When somebody has an illness, people tend to say, you know, maybe you don't have enough faith. You know, you should go read more Quran. And mind you, yes, there are studies that we know this as Muslims, that it does impact our spiritual health. But recent research, psychological research, has shown that when we do these ritualistic acts of healing, they do have an impact on our well-being and our mental health. So number 2, these illnesses will never affect me. True or false? False. Indiscriminate of race, religion, age, background. And we see in the recent years in social media and just in the public, you've seen famous people who unfortunately have either taken their lives because of depression, right? Or have come out and started speaking about things that we've seen an increase perhaps of more awareness. So my question to that is, why does it have to, you know, why is it that somebody famous or somebody in our community, why do they have to do that in order for this topic to get more attention? Why don't we do more preventative work rather than reactive treatment type of work, right? Mental illnesses are just an excuse for poor behavior. False, right? It's true that some people who experience these illnesses may behave in ways that are unexpected or can seem strange, right? But we need to remember that it's not the illness. Sorry, rather, it's not the person. It's not the person. It's the actual illness. That's right. Behind these behaviors, because nobody truly chooses to experience an illness, right? Like, you don't go out of your way to be a diabetic, although, you know, it becomes questionable when you look at somebody's lifestyle in terms of how much sugar intake they take, but they don't deliberately do that. They enjoy it, perhaps, right? Well, sometimes you can engage in behavior that could lead to these illnesses, right? So people who experience a change in their behavior due to an illness, they may feel embarrassed themselves or ashamed around others. So it's true that people with a history of mental illness are like anyone else. They make poor choices or do unexpected things, but it's related to the symptoms. not the person. Number 4, this is an interesting one. Bad parenting causes mental illnesses. True? Somewhat true. Right? Sometimes you could have amazing family members in an upbringing and the child still could develop depression. Could be genetic perhaps, right? So there's not one factor that can cause an illness. Complicated conditions that can arise from what? Genetics, biology, the environment, life experiences, right? We do know that family and loved ones, they do have a big role in supporting and impacting, of course. I mean, nobody can say that a child who's grown up in an environment of domestic violence, you know, that could very well have an impact on that child. Or sometimes this child who grows up in this environment decides, you know, I'm aware the background that I came from, but I choose not to let this impact me, right? I'm not going to repeat the cycle of abuse that I grew up in, for example. So number 5, people with mental illnesses are violent and dangerous. True or false? Why do you suppose? Why do you suppose that is? True. You could be experiencing that, but again, what comes out is a result of the illness, right? What's interesting is that some people try to predict violence so that they know what to avoid. However, the causes of violence, as we know, are also complicated. And researchers agree that mental illnesses are not a good predictors of violence. In fact, if we look at mental illnesses on their own, people who experience them, okay, are no more violent than those without an illness. Excluding people, on the other hand, that is linked to violence. It's also important to note that people who experience mental illnesses are the ones who are most likely to be isolated. So that's the link there. Does that make sense? Number 6, people don't recover from mental illnesses. False. Right. And true at the same time. Meaning, I always use the diabetic example because we can connect to that in terms of physical illnesses. A diabetic tends to be somebody who's going to be living with it long term. Would you not say like a lifelong illness? They have to manage it, right? They manage it with medication, change in lifestyle maintenance, definitely a change in diet, right? So the same idea with mental illnesses. Sometimes you could have an illness that you could recover from, right? But most of the time, people who experience clinical depression will tend to have it for the rest of their lives. Could be triggered by stressors, but they can manage it. You can still live with it, but you can manage it to still lead a healthy lifestyle, okay? So how about number 8? People who experience mental illnesses, they cannot work. I skipped the stress one, right? So people with mental illnesses can't handle stress. They kind of go hand in hand, right? Stress. Do you believe that people with these illnesses can handle stress? No? Yes? What's interesting is that they will handle it probably better than people who don't have mental illnesses. Why do you suppose that is? So people living with mental illnesses can handle stress better than others. Why? They get used to it, yeah? They learn how to solve problems in a different way, right? They learn stress management strategies, right? Problem solving. So they take care of their stress before it becomes an issue, which then could trigger something. So if you're inherently predisposed to an illness, you may be living, you know, for a long time without experiencing whatever you could be, you know, pre-programmed, so to speak, whether it's a mental or physical illness, right? But then let's say you experience something in your life that causes you a lot of stress. And then innately what you have becomes triggered. So it comes out in the form, let's say, of anxiety. What does anxiety sound like or seem like? For those of you who've seen it or experienced it or the idea of it, what is anxiety? How can that look like? Could imitate a heart attack, definitely, the panic attacks. What else? Maybe tightness in the chest, trouble breathing, worrying, overthinking, right? So let's say you're fine and all of a sudden a stressor comes into your life that trigger these symptoms, but then you learn how to manage it better. right? And so when we apply this to the next point, number 8, people who experience mental illnesses cannot work. True or false? Again, why? Why do you suppose that is? You manage it, right? Yeah. You can adapt. I'm not sure what the culture in the workplace here is in the UK, but I see in Canada, for example, there's become more awareness around mental health, and we've seen that in the last 5 to 8 years. Before that, we didn't really have the same kind of awareness that we have now, but also in the workplace now. People have become more aware that you can take a mental health day. You can have a sick day for, having a severe depression where you can't function, you can't go to work, right? So there have been more accommodations over the last few years for that. So number 9, kids can't have a mental illness like depression. Those are adult problems. False? As we said earlier, it's indiscriminate of age, right? The problem, though, with children, the idea of mental illnesses is that sometimes they appear at a younger age and we may not be aware of it. It could come out in what kind of behavior? Anger, perhaps, rebellion, hitting kids at school, bedwetting. It could show in different ways, but we may not clue in as, there could be an issue going on here. So it's really important to pay attention for those early on, because what happens is if they become undetected and there's no supports for the growing child, their brain development gets impacted by these illnesses as they're growing. And it could really develop their personality a different way and their behaviors. So it's really important to note these things in our children. And number 10, everyone gets depressed as they grow older. It's just part of the aging process. True or false? False, yeah. Like we said, it's indiscriminate. What's interesting, though, is that the elderly, again, when we talk about isolation, especially in the Western culture, maybe not so much in the Muslim culture, where there's a huge emphasis on family and taking care of our parents just like they took care of us when we were young, right? We grow up with these values. We find in most Western countries that the elderly are then just put into a home to be taken care of. Mind you, there are situations where sometimes we are forced to do that because we don't have enough support or we don't have the skills to help like a member who's really ailing, right? But for the most part in our communities, we take care of our families. So there's less likely to be isolation for the elderly, which, as we know, can lead to depression. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yes. What else? Definitely. Like we said earlier, these are the top 2 in the UK. We also have that in Canada as well. I'd say this is probably amongst the top ones as well within our own community. Suicide. Self-harm, right? Addictions as well. And addictions don't necessarily just mean drugs and alcohol. They could also mean gambling and pornography. The Muslim Youth Helpline here in the UK did a research on this last year, and they found that there has been an increase in the use of pornography within our communities, more so in women as well. This is statistics from our own community. Now, why do you suppose that is? For those of you who were here earlier, we touched upon that. Because of the lack of education on sexual education within our own communities. So then people have access elsewhere to find out, but then, like the brother was saying earlier, what could be something innocent or a small thing could then develop and get worse into a habit. And that's the idea with addictions, is that you could try it, some kids may be tempted to try marijuana or whatever because there's access to that, easy access. Not sure what it's like here in Manchester, but I know in Canada, we know the statistics with that. We've seen the issues in our communities where, can you change? Yeah, we've seen that children as young as 8 have been exposed to drugs on the playground. That's pretty frightening if you think about it, right? The kids, while they're waiting for the bus, they have the opportunity there if the parents leave them. Recess, lunch break, after school, walking home. If parents are not home, the child has the time frame where they could do that. And so it could be just something out of habit that can get worse and worse, because how addictions work is that hit, you know, you got a feeling with it, so you want more. What you get next time is not enough, you need more. And then you're training your brain with the chemicals. It needs more in order to feel a certain way. And people sometimes use substances to get away from their problems rather than dealing with the problem. And then so now you have another problem. Instead of just the issue you're dealing with, you've got the problem of the addiction as well. Mood disorders, that's pretty common in our community as well. And sometimes it comes out in the form of violence, whether it's male or female, in aggression. Cross-generational cultural issues, we know this happens, right? We did a lot of work with that earlier in the day. Identity issues as Muslims. Perhaps young women with the hijab. Where do I fit in? How do I fit in? You know, what style of hijab that we see nowadays, I call it fashion hijab, you know, matching lipstick to the hijab. You know, and on social media, it's pretty terrible out there in terms of what we see, right? But why is it that people feel that they have to change their values in order to fit in and be accepted, rather than allowing others the opportunity to learn and about us and the way we wear things? For example, we have World Hijab Day now, and that is implemented into the workplace. In fact, I've done that at my own workplace, where I bring in hijabs, all the ones I don't want anymore, I wash them and I bring them. I have new ones too, and I'll bring them, and we'll have, you know, try on a hijab. And some of these ladies would actually wear the hijab the whole day. They wanted to experience what it was like. Now, some of these women, when I talked to them and chatted with them afterwards and interviewed them, they say, I actually felt so beautiful in the hijab, as opposed to, you know, having to worry about the physical appearance. I felt that when I was talking to people, that didn't matter. And they owned it, mashallah, like how they wore it, because I'd helped them put it on, and they kept it on. They kept the hijab after as a gift. But you see the difference here. Rather than changing the way you wear your hijab to try and fit in and be accepted, especially us young ladies, huh? Teenagers, right? You want to fit in with your people there. But how about we get them to look at us a bit differently with the hijab? If we have these initiatives like, you know, World Hijab Day, wear hijab to work. You see? Do you have these kind of initiatives here? Yeah? Alhamdulillah. So I know I brought up female Muslim identity issues, but I'm sure there's a lot with the young men, right? What could be some of the common issues that young Muslim men deal with?
Used to be a beard, but now it's style, so no beards.
Now it's in style.
Now it's fashion, so
You can get away with it.
you feel a bit more comfortable. Before, like, everyone thought, oh, this guy's got a beard. What's he, like, why you want the beard stuff? And now, kind of the trends and stuff like that.
It's trendy now. Yeah, it's easy to have that and get away with it. Yeah. What else? What could be some other issues? Identity issues that we experience.
I guess another one is perpetrating the work environment. You know, a lot of the conversations sometimes your colleagues might be having are not halal, or things to do with alcohol, those areas of life which is not permitted in your religion. And I guess if you're a Muslim, you know, you can't always feel like you want to stay outside this conversation. So I guess it's a challenge around fitting in as well.
Right, right. It's true. Yeah, it's a challenging one sometimes. Or handshaking, perhaps, things like that, yeah? Mm-hmm. So that's become recent in the last few years. I would say that's always been there, but it's only the last few years that it's been something that's brought out more within our communities, right? Something we talked about a bit earlier as well in terms of how to approach that. See, all of these here are their own workshops that we can have a whole hour or two, even more, to talk about. PTSD with wars and refugees, right? Issues related to domestic violence and abuse, sexual abuse, child abuse. These are things that are happening in our community. Islamophobia and the effects of that on us, right? What other ones do you suppose that we have in our community? Yep, so mood disorders, yep. What else? Ones that we didn't touch upon here. So stress, if not taken care of properly, could lead to these issues, right? Did we cover most of the issues that you find happening in our communities? Managing anger. That's a big one, yeah. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to get everybody to stand up. Let's go, stand up. Because I feel that we're all falling asleep. That's what rice can do, right? So just stretch out a little bit. Tense your muscles and release your muscles. Tense and release. Arc your toes. Ground yourself and then tiptoe. Get those muscles moving. Usually you can do that without moving much. Just like tense your whole body and then release as well. Got the blood flowing a little bit? Yeah? This is also a stress management technique, right? And you can do a little bit of deep breathing as well with that. So holding your breath and releasing as well. A couple more times. Feeling a little bit more energetic now? Yeah? All right. So these are techniques you can do anytime to help if you're feeling a bit stressed or you need to focus when you've got exams or anything like that. So now that we've taken a quick look in terms of what are some of the most common struggles that we have in our community, let's take a look at what counseling is. What do you think counseling is? What's the definition that comes to your mind when you hear counseling or therapy? The healing process, yeah? Mm-hmm. Yeah, like all of these. So here's a technical definition, which says that professional guidance of the individual by utilizing psychological methods, especially in collecting case data history, using various techniques of the personal interview and testing interests and aptitudes. So this is a very technical, big, somewhat perhaps scary definition. So I've got my own definition, the Berak Hussain definition of counseling. So it's about creating a confidential, safe space for people to talk about whatever issues that they may bring in. And so this helps you work towards reaching your goals, solving problems, or providing strategies. So I'm not here to fix your problems, so to speak, as a therapist, right? But we can talk about some of the issues and look at how to work with them, providing strategies to cope and deal with them. Not with a non-judgmental environment, acceptance. This is a big one here. I find it quite amusing when I go to the waiting room and call out, somebody by a Muslim name, and they look at me, and they see the hijab, they become terrified. Why? Because when they come in, they're going to talk about all the haram things they've done or their secrets, and then, so they're worried that first I'm going to judge them, be the haram police with them, and second, that I'm going to be sharing what they told me to the rest of the community. So these are some of the misconceptions we have around counseling as well, is that people will talk with what they know about other people, which is why, let's say there's a counselor from our own community, most people will not go to that counselor because that person knows everybody, right? So that's why sometimes people from our own communities like to go outside to a non-Muslim or non-cultural because they feel like, oh, they're not going to share my information. But people, when they come in at first, we talk about the issue and the problem, they notice I haven't said anything about religion or, and especially the ones that say who haven't been very good, whether they've engaged with alcohol or, stepped away from the lifestyle that they're familiar with, especially students who've moved away from home, which was a concern that one of the parents mentioned earlier. I noticed by the end of the session when we've talked about, all right, so let's get back on track with your academics. How can we take care of stress? Let's take care of this class or this class. I notice most of the time people will come back and say, I've also stopped praying, or I used to wear hijab, or I used to, and so I hope with that they felt safe enough, that they will bring that out, and then we can talk about that. So then I'll say, because I'm not a sheikh or a scholar, so I'm not going to teach them, obviously, this stuff, but I will say something like, so what do you want to do with that? You're saying you're not praying as much. Is that something important to you? Why is it important? Okay, so if it is important and it brings you, some people say it brings me a calmness, it brings me that routine. It's something that my family taught me growing up. So then how can you incorporate that into your life to bring back that peace? I had a student several months ago who said all this stuff. I stopped praying, I don't read the Quran anymore, I'm not engaging in behaviors I should be engaging in. And so I said, okay, well, how do you want to bring that back? So I didn't tell her how to do it. I asked her, how would you do that? And so she brought it back, said, well, I'm going to start reading more Quran. The last time I saw her, alhamdulillah, she said, I have been on my prayers, I have been reading more Quran. I said, how does that make you feel? A typical therapist question. How did that make you feel? She said, I felt more at peace. So she herself found the benefit of bringing that back into her routine. So it's always interesting to see how people, because I have people from so many different backgrounds that come, right? Sometimes I have folks of Christian background who are religious and they want to incorporate spirituality into the therapy. And so that's how we can incorporate it as well. So we have short-term or long-term, and we also take a look at all the things that we discussed earlier, right? Ranging from stress, anxiety, depression, relationships, families. Have lots of students who come in from other countries as well, and so we talk about those issues. Sometimes I have students who all of a sudden money stops coming in, right? A lot of students from Nigeria, their parents can't send them money right now because of what's going on in the political situation there. And so these students have had to stop school, work, to save money for their studies, but they're very stressed out. They're not doing well academically, right? So these are some examples that I come across. And if it's something that I cannot help with, then I will refer them either to my colleagues or other professionals with mental health backgrounds. So it's really important to encourage that. And so you have some resources that we have here. And if you are interested, you can email me, or inshallah I'll pass them along to Sister Isma, and then you can have access to that, inshallah. So I just want to quickly describe, before we finish off, the differences amongst the different professionals. Okay? So who remembers what work I do? What does that mean? No, psychotherapist doesn't necessarily mean Muslim counseling. It doesn't mean specifically Muslim counseling, right? That's just the public name that I use, the Muslim counselor. But psychotherapist is somebody who's completed a master's in graduate studies, okay, and can do therapy, but they cannot prescribe medication, nor can they diagnose. Okay? We're the popular ones because we don't charge as much as, let's say, a psychologist who can be specialized in a certain area, okay? They can also do research, they can diagnose, but they cannot prescribe medications. Psychologists, they usually also go by the title doctor, and they finish a PhD. A psychiatrist, you've heard of psychiatrists? Yeah, so these are medical doctors who've gone through medical school, who've gotten the training, but they deal with psychiatric issues. So more severe illnesses like major depression, schizophrenia, right? And so they can diagnose as well as prescribe, as well as treat. But they usually have a reputation around them. And so we have this misconception about psychiatrists that they just give pills to people. They just give pills. And a lot of people will be afraid of seeing them. Now, what's interesting in terms of payment here, psychiatrists tend to be covered by your national healthcare provider, whereas psychotherapists and psychologists are not. So you have to pay out of pocket unless you have insurance coverage. So we covered these three, and there's also the GP, so general practitioner psychotherapist. These guys are like unicorns. You know why? They're rare. Well, unicorns don't exist. It's just an expression, right? So GP psychotherapists are medical doctors with medical training that can diagnose, that can prescribe medication, and also do therapy. So they're very popular. If you can find somebody who can do that, then they can understand the medical, the physical, as well as the mental aspect of therapy as well. Okay? So it's good to understand. And then we have social workers as well who finish graduate studies, masters at the master's level. And so they are more comprehensive. They do more case working in terms of, let's say, immigration integration, things like that. They have a caseload that they work with like that. It's a little bit different. And they can do therapy as well. So do we have a good understanding of the different professionals in the field? I had to do a whole presentation one time just on that. So this is in a nutshell, so to speak. I always enjoy finishing this presentation with this beautiful riwayah that's attributed, saying rather, that's attributed to Imam Ali alayhi salam. And so it says, your remedy is within you, but you do not sense it. Your sickness is from you, but you do not perceive it. You presume you are a small entity, but within you is enfolded the entire universe. You are indeed the evident book, by whose alphabet the hidden becomes manifest. Therefore you have no need to look beyond yourself. What you seek is within you, if only you reflect. And I find, with this reflection, inshallah, what we've experienced today, what we've learned about, that we can reflect more about our mental health, physical health, because these are really, really important in keeping family units together, strong, which is what we need in terms of preparing ourselves for the Imam, right? Having strong family units, good mental health, and supporting and reflecting within each other, inshallah. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
So a huge thank you to the Majlis al-Ulama Shia of Europe for being very innovative and supporting the initiatives around mental health awareness in our community. As we know, there's so many struggles that every community experiences when it comes to family issues, mental health, marriage issues, youth. There's a whole range of struggles that we can experience, and it's so important that we have the scholars on board working with mental health specialists to bring more awareness to these topics that can essentially really harm the society. So when we work together like that, it works with prevention in terms of, rather than being reactive to the issues that can come up. So alhamdulillah, I'm really pleased and happy and honored to work with the Majlis to helping the community, specifically here in Manchester. This is the first time that we do this here, and inshallah we can do this annually as well. Blessings on my journey, inshallah.